The warning lights of the cargo hauler Wanderer's Dream painted Marcus Rivera's face in angry red as he fought with controls that refused to respond. 3 weeks into what should have been a routine supply run to the outer colonies, and his ship was dying around him. The navigation console sparked, sending acrid smoke curling through the cramped cockpit. "Come on, baby," Marcus muttered, his calloused hands dancing across emergency switches with the desperation of a man who'd spent more years in space than on solid ground. "Don't quit on me now." The ship shuddered violently as another system failed. Through the viewport, Marcus could see the swirling purple and gold clouds of the Helix Nebula growing larger by the second. Somewhere in that cosmic maelstrom was an abandoned mining station, his only hope of survival. The automated distress beacon he'd launched hours ago would take days to reach the nearest patrol route, if it reached anyone at all. Marcus had always prided himself on being self-reliant. At 28, he'd been hauling cargo through the frontier systems for nearly a decade, preferring the solitude of deep space to the crowded worlds of human civilization. He trusted his ship, his skills, and nothing else. Now, as the Wanderer's Dream bucked and groaned around him, that independence was about to be tested in ways he'd never imagined. The mining station appeared through the nebula's haze like a ghost ship, its hull scarred by years of cosmic radiation and debris impacts. Marcus had visited Nexus Station once before, back when it was still operational. Now it hung silent in the void, officially abandoned for over 5 years after the rare mineral veins played out. Fighting the sluggish controls, Marcus managed to align his dying ship with one of the station's docking bays. The impact was harder than he'd intended, metal screaming against metal as the Wanderer's Dream scraped along the docking clamps. Emergency seals hissed shut just before his ship's life support finally gave out completely. Marcus grabbed his emergency kit and stumbled toward the airlock, his ribs aching from where he'd been thrown against the control console during the rough docking. The station's artificial gravity was weak but functional, and blessed breathable atmosphere flowed through the airlocks as they cycled open. The docking bay was exactly as he remembered it, stark metal walls lined with defunct loading equipment, everything covered in a fine layer of dust that spoke of long abandonment. But something felt different. Wrong. There was a subtle hum in the air, barely perceptible vibrations that suggested the station wasn't as dead as it appeared. Marcus made his way deeper into the station, following corridors he remembered from his previous visit. Emergency lighting cast long shadows between sections of complete darkness. His flashlight beam revealed overturned furniture and scattered debris, but no signs of recent habitation. Still, that strange sensation persisted, the feeling that he wasn't alone. It was in the station's central hub that he first saw her. Marcus rounded a corner and froze, his flashlight beam falling across a figure that made his breath catch in his throat. She was humanoid but clearly not human, with skin that seemed to glow with its own inner light, a soft, pearl-like luminescence that made the shadows dance around her. She knelt beside what appeared to be some kind of garden, her slender fingers tending to plants that definitely hadn't been there during the station's mining days. She looked up at his approach, and Marcus found himself staring into eyes that held depths like captured starlight. Her features were delicate, almost ethereal, with high cheekbones and pointed ears that spoke of alien heritage. Her hair fell in waves of silver and blue, moving as if stirred by an unfelt breeze. For a long moment, they simply stared at each other across the hub's open space. Marcus's hand instinctively moved toward the plasma pistol at his hip, then stopped as he realized she showed no signs of aggression. If anything, she seemed as surprised to see him as he was to see her. I didn't know anyone was still here," Marcus said, his voice echoing strangely in the vast chamber. "I'm sorry. My ship broke down, and this was the only place I could reach." The alien woman tilted her head, studying him with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable, but somehow felt natural. When she spoke, her voice was like wind chimes, in a gentle breeze, musical and somehow familiar despite the unfamiliar language. Marcus shook his head. "I don't understand. Do you speak standard?" She paused, then spoke again, this time in accented but clear standard. "You are hurt," she said, rising gracefully to her feet. "I can sense the pain in your body." Only then did Marcus realize how much he was favoring his left side, where the impact during docking had left him bruised and possibly worse. The adrenaline of the crash landing was wearing off, leaving behind a sharp ache that made breathing difficult. "It's nothing I can't handle," he said automatically, even as he winced at the movement. The alien woman stepped closer, and Marcus caught a scent like ozone and exotic flowers. "My name is Valana," she said. "I was a healer among my people. Please, let me help you." Something in her voice, a note of loneliness that matched his own, made Marcus hesitate instead of refusing outright. "Marcus," he said. "Marcus Rivera. And I'm not sure that's a good idea. We're different species. What if your healing methods are harmful to humans?" Valana smiled, and the expression transformed her already beautiful features into something radiant. "Life energy is universal," she said. "Pain calls to those who can ease it, regardless of the form it takes. I have been alone on this station for many cycles, Marcus Rivera. Please allow me to remember what it means to heal." There was something in her tone, a combination of professional confidence and personal vulnerability, that broke down his defenses. Marcus found himself nodding, though every instinct told him to be cautious. Valana approached slowly, as if not wanting to startle. "I need to place my hands on your injured rib, she said. "The healing touch requires contact. Do you consent?" The formal way she asked for permission struck Marcus as oddly touching. "Yeah," he said. "Yeah, okay." When Valana's hand settled against his chest, even through his shirt, Marcus felt an immediate change. Warmth spread from her touch, but it was more than simple heat. It felt like sunlight on his skin, like the first breath of spring air after a long winter. The pain in his ribs began to fade, replaced by a sensation of wholeness that went deeper than the physical. But something else was happening. As Valana's healing energy flowed into him, Marcus became aware of her presence in ways that had nothing to do with the physical senses. He could feel her emotions, her concentration, her compassion, and beneath it all, a profound loneliness that echoed his own. Valana gasped, her luminous eyes widening in surprise. Marcus realized she was feeling the same connection, the same impossible awareness of his inner self. Their eyes met, and in that moment, something fundamental shifted between them. "This should not be possible," Valana whispered. But she didn't pull away. If anything, she leaned closer, her hands still pressed against his chest. "My people, we can form empathic bonds, but never with other species. Never like this." Marcus could feel his heart beating in sync with hers, could sense the wonder and confusion swirling through her mind. "What's happening to us?" he asked, though part of him already knew the answer would change everything. "I think," Valana said, her voice barely audible, "we are becoming something new." The days that followed Marcus's healing blurred together in a haze of discovery and growing intimacy. Valana had shown him to quarters in the station's residential section, a small but comfortable room that she had somehow made livable despite the facility's abandonment. Soft bioluminescent plants provided gentle light, and the air carried the faint fragrance of her garden. Marcus found himself spending most of his time with Valana, drawn by the connection that pulsed between them like a second heartbeat. She had been alone on the station for 3 years, she told him, after her research vessel had suffered critical damage while studying the nebula's unique energy patterns. Her crew had evacuated, but Valana had chosen to remain, fascinated by the station's position within the cosmic phenomenon. "My people, the Etherians, we are explorers by nature," she explained as they walked through the corridors she had made into a home. "But we are also bound by strict protocols about contact with other species. What happened between us during your healing? It violates every law my government has established." Marcus watched the play of emotions across her luminous features. Even without their empathic bond, he could see the conflict within her. "What exactly are these laws?" he asked. Valana paused beside a viewport that showed the swirling colors of the nebula. Etherians form deep emotional connections through touch and shared consciousness. Our society learned long ago that such bonds with other species can be dangerous. There have been incidents where the psychic feedback caused madness, even death, so we maintain strict isolation protocols. "But our bond doesn't feel dangerous," Marcus said, stepping closer to her. The connection between them hummed with gentle warmth, bringing clarity rather than confusion. "It feels right." Valana turned to face him, and Marcus saw desire warring with duty in her starlight eyes. "That is what makes it so frightening," she whispered. "And so wonderful." The next morning, Marcus woke to find Valana standing in his doorway, her luminescent skin glowing softly in the dim light. She wore a simple garment that seemed to be made of flowing energy rather than fabric, and her silver-blue hair cascaded over her shoulders like liquid starlight. "I have been thinking all night," she said, her musical voice carrying undertones he was learning to read through their bond. "About what you said yesterday. About how our connection feels right." Marcus sat up, immediately alert to the shift in her emotional state. Through their link, he could sense her resolve, tinged with nervous anticipation. "And my people believe that emotional bonds should be explored carefully, gradually, over many cycles of courtship." Valana stepped into the room, and Marcus felt his pulse quicken. "But you are human. Your species approaches intimacy differently, yes? More directly?" The question hung in the air between them, loaded with possibility. Marcus stood slowly, acutely aware of the charged atmosphere that seemed to crackle around Valana's presence. "That depends on the people involved," he said carefully. "But when something feels this strong, this natural, sometimes the best thing to do is trust it." Valana moved closer, close enough that he could see the patterns of light that danced beneath her skin, responding to her emotional state. "I have never experienced desire like this," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "The way you make me feel. It is beyond anything in my people's experience." Marcus reached out, gently touching her cheek. Her skin was warm and incredibly soft, and at the contact, their empathic bond flared with shared sensation. Valana's eyes fluttered closed, and through their connection, he felt her pleasure at his touch magnified and reflected back to him. "Show me," he said, his voice rough with want. "Show me how Etherians express desire." What followed was unlike anything in Marcus's experience. When Valana's lips met his, it wasn't just a physical kiss, but a complete joining of sensation and emotion. Through their bond, he felt her desire as clearly as his own, creating a feedback loop of pleasure that left them both gasping. Valana's hands moved to his chest, and where she touched, her skin began to glow more brightly. The light seemed to flow between them, and Marcus discovered that he could sense not just her emotions but her memories, her dreams, the very essence of who she was. In return, she experienced his strength, his determination, the fierce independence that had driven him to the stars. They moved together as if choreographed by some cosmic force, their bodies finding a rhythm that transcended species barriers. Marcus marveled at the way Valana's luminescence intensified with her arousal, painting patterns of light across both their bodies. Every touch, every caress, was amplified through their psychic connection, until the boundary between them seemed to dissolve entirely. "This is impossible," Valana gasped as they lay entwined afterward, her head resting on Marcus's chest. Her skin still glowed with residual energy, pulsing gently in time with their synchronized heartbeats. "What we have done, what we have become. My people have no name for it." Marcus stroked her hair, marveling at how it seemed to respond to his touch with subtle shifts in color. "Maybe it's time for new names," he said. "New possibilities." For the next several days, they existed in a bubble of exploration and intimacy. Valana showed Marcus the hidden chambers she had discovered throughout the station, spaces where she had cultivated gardens of alien plants that thrived in the nebula's unique radiation. Marcus shared stories of his travels, his love for the freedom of space, and his deep-seated need for independence that had driven him from world to world. Their physical relationship deepened with each encounter, becoming a dance of human passion and Etherean mysticism. Marcus learned that Valana's people experienced pleasure as waves of shared consciousness, while she discovered the fierce intensity of human desire. Together they created something entirely new, a fusion of their species' approaches to intimacy that left them both transformed. But their paradise was not destined to last. Marcus was working on repairs to his ship in the docking bay when the proximity alarms began to sound. Through the station's viewports, he could see a sleek vessel emerging from the nebula's concealing clouds, clearly of alien design, its hull reflecting the cosmic energies around it like a living mirror. Valana appeared at his side, her emotional state spiking with alarm and something that felt like guilt. "It is an Etherian patrol ship," she said, her voice tight with dread. "They have found me." "Is that bad?" Marcus asked, though her emotions were already giving him the answer. "The commander is my brother Jorix," Valana replied, her luminescence dimming as if she were trying to hide her light. "He was sent to retrieve me months ago, but I have been avoiding contact. Now," she touched her chest, where Marcus could sense the warm pulse of their bond. "Now he will detect what has happened between us, the moment he sees me." The alien ship docked with practiced efficiency, and minutes later, the station's corridors echoed with the sound of approaching footsteps. Marcus had barely enough time to pull on his shirt before the hub doors opened, admitting 3 figures in form-fitting suits that seemed to be made of the same flowing energy as Valana's garments. Leader removed his helmet, revealing features similar to Valana's but harder, more angular. His skin held a bluish tint rather than her pearl luminescence, and his eyes were like chips of ice-blue crystal. When his gaze fell on Marcus, those eyes narrowed with immediate suspicion. "Sister," he said, his voice carrying the same musical quality as Valana's but with undertones of authority and barely controlled anger. "You have been difficult to locate." Valana stepped forward, positioning herself slightly between Marcus and her brother. "Commander Jorix, I did not expect the patrol to venture this deep into the nebula. We detected energy signatures consistent with forbidden bonding practices," Jorix replied, his gaze never leaving Marcus. "Imagine my surprise to discover that my own sister was the source." He spoke a few words in their musical language, and the 2 soldiers with him moved to flank. "Marcus." "Wait," Marcus said, raising his hands but not backing down. "If you're here to take Valana, then we need to talk. What's between us isn't some violation of your laws. It's something new. Something that could change how our species interact." Jorix's expression grew even colder. Human, you understand nothing of what you have done. The bond you share with my sister is an abomination that threatens the stability of our entire psychic network. It must be severed immediately, before the contamination spreads. Contamination? Marcus felt anger flare through their connection, and Valana's skin began to glow more brightly in response. What we have isn't contamination. It's evolution. Enough, Jorix commanded. But Marcus could see uncertainty flicker in his eyes as he witnessed the strength of their connection. Valana, you will come with us immediately. The human will be left here with sufficient supplies until his people can retreat. Valana moved closer to Marcus, her hand finding his. The moment their skin touched, their bond flared with such intensity that even Jorix stepped back in surprise. I will not leave him, she said, her voice ringing with determination. What Marcus and I have found together is too precious to abandon for the sake of outdated fears. Then you have chosen exile, Jorix said, though Marcus could hear the pain beneath his stern words. And you have doomed us both to explain to the council why I failed to bring you home. As the three Etherians faced off against Marcus and Valana, in the station's hub, the nebula swirled outside the viewports like a cosmic storm. Marcus realized that their brief paradise was ending, but the bond between them burned brighter than ever, a bridge of love and understanding that might just be strong enough to change the universe itself. The standoff in the station's hub stretched into tense minutes, with Marcus and Valana on one side, their hands clasped and their bond radiating defiant unity, while Commander Jorix and his soldiers maintained their positions on the other. The nebula outside seemed to pulse with anticipation, its cosmic energies swirling in patterns that matched the tension in the room. You speak of evolution, Jorix said finally, his ice-blue eyes studying the way light danced between Marcus and Valana where their skin touched. But evolution without understanding is merely chaos. How do you know this bond will not drive you both to madness, as it has others in our history? Marcus felt Valana's grip tighten on his hand, and through their connection he sensed memories she had never shared. Fragments of Etherian history where interspecies bonds had indeed led to tragedy. But he also felt her absolute certainty that what they shared was different, stronger, more stable than anything that had come before. Because we've already been tested, Marcus said, his voice steady despite the plasma weapons trained on him. Your sister has been alone on this station for 3 years. I've been flying solo through space for a decade. We're both used to isolation, to depending only on ourselves. If this bond was going to drive us crazy, it would have happened by now. Instead, Valana added, her luminescence brightening as she spoke, it has made us more than we were apart. Stronger, more complete. One of Jorix's soldiers spoke in their musical language, and Marcus caught fragments of meaning through his connection with Valana. Something about energy readings and unprecedented psychic signatures. Jorix's expression grew troubled as he listened. What is it? Marcus asked. Jorix hesitated, then replied, the nebula's energy patterns have been changing since you arrived. Our sensors indicate that your bond is somehow affecting the cosmic forces around this station. He paused, studying the swirling colors visible through the viewports. The implications are significant. Before anyone could respond, new alarms began sounding throughout the station. Marcus recognized the proximity warnings. Another ship was approaching, but this time, the vessel that emerged from the nebula's embrace bore the familiar angular lines of human military architecture. Rescue Ship Defiant, a crisp voice announced over the station's communication system. We received your distress. Beacon, Wanderer's Dream. Prepare for boarding. Marcus's heart sank as he realized what this meant. The arrival of a human military vessel would complicate everything, potentially turning their personal crisis into an interstellar incident. Through their bond, he felt Valana's similar fears. "Commander Jorix," Marcus said urgently, "whatever happens next, you need to understand that Valana and I aren't just lovers. We're something new. Something that could change how our species relate to each other. Don't let politics destroy that." Jorix's expression softened slightly. "You speak with conviction, human. But conviction alone does not overcome the laws that have kept my people safe for millennia." The docking bay echoed with the sound of another ship making contact, and minutes later, a squad of human Marines in full combat gear entered the hub. Their leader, a stern-faced woman with captain's insignia, took in the scene with professional assessment. "Captain Rosa Torres, Colonial Defense Force," she announced, her weapon lowered but ready. "Mr. Rivera, we're here to extract you from this situation. Are you being held against your will?" "No," Marcus said quickly, stepping forward while keeping his hand linked with Valana's. "Captain Torres, this isn't a hostage situation. These are Etherians, a peaceful species, and this," he gestured to Valana, "is someone very important to me." Captain Torres's eyes narrowed as she noticed the way light seemed to flow between Marcus and the alien woman. "Mr. Rivera, you've been missing for 2 weeks. Command is very interested in your encounter with alien life forms. We need to debrief you immediately. And I need to inform the Etherian Council of this contact," Jorix added, his own weapons still trained on the humans. Neither party was authorized for first contact protocols. The situation was spiraling toward exactly the kind of diplomatic disaster that Marcus had feared. He could feel Valana's distress through their bond, her fear that they would be separated and their connection dismissed as a mere biological curiosity. "Wait," Marcus said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent years making life-or-death decisions in deep space. "Before anyone calls their superiors, before this becomes a political incident, I want you all to see something." He turned to Valana, meeting her luminous eyes with determination. "Show them," he said softly. "Show them what we've become." Valana nodded, understanding flowing between them without words. She placed her free hand against Marcus's chest, and their bond flared with such intensity that everyone in the hub took an involuntary step back. But this time, instead of keeping their connection private, they let it expand outward. The effect was immediate and profound. Every person in the room, human and Etherian alike, suddenly felt a fraction of what Marcus and Valana experienced together. The overwhelming sense of completion, of two souls finding their perfect match across the vast emptiness of space. The way their different strengths complemented each other, human determination melding with Etherian wisdom to create something greater than either could achieve alone. Captain Torres lowered her weapon entirely, her expression shifting from suspicion to wonder. "I've never felt anything like that," she whispered. "It's like you're two parts of the same person." Jorix's soldiers were equally affected, their rigid stances relaxing as they experienced the profound peace and stability that characterized Marcus and Valana's bond. Even Jorix himself looked shaken, his ice-blue eyes wide with recognition. "This changes everything," he said quietly. "What you have achieved, it should not be possible. Yet here it is. Stable, beautiful, completely unlike the dangerous bonds in our historical records." Marcus felt hope flare through their connection. Then maybe it's time to rewrite those records. Maybe it's time for both our species to consider new possibilities. Captain Torres holstered her weapon and activated her communication device. "Command, this is Torres. I'm going to need a xenobiology team and a diplomatic liaison. What we have here isn't a rescue situation. It's a first contact scenario with significant implications." Over the next several hours, as both human and Etherian officials worked to establish proper diplomatic protocols, Marcus and Valana found themselves at the center of a rapidly evolving situation. Their bond had become living proof that the barriers between species could be overcome, that love and understanding could transcend the fears and prejudices that had kept their peoples apart. Jorix, after lengthy conversations with the Etherian Council, brought news that changed everything. "The Council has agreed to study your bond," he told them as they stood together in Valana's garden, watching the nebula swirl beyond the station's walls. "They believe it may represent a new form of evolution, one that could benefit both our species." "And the humans?" Valana asked, her hand still intertwined with Marcus's. Captain Torres smiled as she approached with a datapad. "Command is fascinated. They're authorizing a joint research station here in the nebula, with you two as the primary researchers. It seems your connection has already started affecting the cosmic energies around us in ways that could revolutionize our understanding of space-time itself." Marcus felt a surge of joy through their bond. "We get to stay together?" "More than that," Torres replied. "You get to help write the next chapter of interspecies relations. The diplomats are already talking about cultural exchange programs, joint exploration missions. What you've proven here, that love can bridge any gap, that's going to change everything." As the sun set over the nebula, painting the station in shades of gold and purple, Marcus and Valana stood together on the observation deck. Around them, human and Etherian personnel worked side by side, already beginning to plan for a— Valana smiled, her skin glowing with the warm light of perfect contentment. "I gave up nothing," she said, rising on her toes to kiss him. "I found everything." Their kiss was witnessed by the swirling nebula, by the stars themselves, and by the representatives of two species learning that the universe was far more welcoming than they had ever dared to hope. In that moment, Marcus and Valana weren't just lovers, they were pioneers, proof that when hearts collide across the vast emptiness of space, they can create something beautiful enough to light up the darkness. The bond between them pulsed with shared joy, shared purpose, and the absolute certainty that their love would continue to evolve, to grow, to show the universe new ways of being. They had found each other in the depths of space, and in doing so, they had found a future neither had ever imagined possible. As the stars wheeled overhead, and the nebula sang its ancient song, Marcus Rivera and Valana stood together on the threshold of tomorrow, their love a bridge between worlds, their bond a beacon of hope for all who dared to reach across the darkness and touch another soul.